Welcome, everybody. It's lovely to see you all. Thank you for
Hello.
joining us. I don't know about you, but well, it was sunny. Now I've come on here, it's gone cloudy, so that's quite nice. I won't be mourn being inside when the sun is shining. It's nice to see some friendly faces as well as some new faces. I'd like to welcome you all to this session on the Big Lunch How To. Um, We're asking you to keep yourselves on mute just while we're chatting through, but by all means, put any questions in the chat, and we'll ask some questions later, and you're welcome to come off mute. We're recording the session, so if you're hiding and don't want anyone to know you're here, it's okay if you want to turn your camera off and your name might be visible, just to let you know. I want to introduce myself. I'm Tracy Robbins, and I'm Head of Communities, and I live just outside Carlisle, next stop, Scotland. We also have Laurie on the call. Give us a wave, Laurie.
Hello. I'm
Laurie,
Lo- Do
go
you want me
on,
to introduce
Laurie.
myself? Yeah, hello, I'm Laurie. I'm in Cardiff. I'm the Wales manager for Eden Communities. I'm about to head off on maternity leave, so I'm going to hand over nicely to Beverly, who's also on the call.
You stuck on mute. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Even I'm
Oh, yeah.
based in North Wales, and yeah, soon to take over from Laurie. So we'll be looking after everybody in Wales.
Lovely.
And Grania is joining us, but she's literally about 5 minutes ago, her computer did like a, full update crash.
We've all been there in the past. Gronia's here. Quick wave, Gronia. There you go. So there's our Gronia. So that's who will be presenting to you today. So Laura's going to run through some slides and we're just going to take you through so you don't have to look at our mugs all this session. Some thoughts and ideas on why we do the big lunch and who we are. And then there's a chance to ask plenty of questions afterwards. So Laurie, would you like to share your screen? Ooh, we're starting a bit early. Back to the beginning, Laurie. No. Well, spoiler alert, you can get a free pack, but I'm sure you're all aware of that. So hopefully you're at the right session, and that's the how to, and that's just a little bit about the big lunch. So it's an idea from the Eden Project supported by Pairs, and then we have two headline sponsors, the Co-op and Green King, who are our friends and hopefully locally will be yours. So the big lunch is an idea from the Eden Project. And people might wonder what a destination down in the middle of Cornwall has to do with the big lunch across the UK. Well, what a lot of people don't know is that the Eden Project is a charity, and it is all about demonstrating that positive action, not just for the planet, but for people. So we believe a healthy planet, healthy people. And for me, the essence or the ethos of Eden is around resilience, sustainability, and social action. And when we think of sustainability, we think of the whole sense of sustainability. So actually how us as human beings are able to sustain each other and our communities, as well as the world around us, and how actually from being able to be connected to each other, then we're more able to be resilient. And then we've got the networks we need to build on that social action. So one of the ways we do that, how we take Eden out to our communities, is with the big lunch. So today we're going to talk through some of the things about the big lunch, why we do it, what it is, how you can make it work for you. So we're well aware not one size fits all, some top tips, and then Laura's going to share her experience of what she's done at her big lunch. And then any questions, Beverly's going to sweep them all up from the chat if you pop them through as we're talking, but also you can come off mute and ask your questions then. So the big lunch. We have this wonderful vision. The idea came, I think, in 2009, so it's been going a long time now, where we was like, imagine if the whole nation stopped and actually had lunch with their neighbours. What a difference that would make. Do you know, if, everybody stopped for a couple of hours and had lunch with their neighbours. Now, we're a little bit away off the whole of the UK stopping to have lunch with their neighbours. But actually, over the time we've done it, we have seen that actually doing things like the big lunch, bringing people together where you live, does help create that happier and healthier communities. And we do our utmost to support you to help your neighbourhoods thrive. So some of the stats I just wanted to share with you about why we do the big lunch, because it looks all fun and frills and buntings and cupcakes and really, really nice times. But actually, we do independent research every year to find out, you know, the difference it makes. Now, last year we had 10 million people join the big lunch. When you think, I think we might be up to 70 million people in the UK. We've got a way to go if we want the UK to sit down and have their lunch with their neighbours. But 10 million is a huge number. And I'm not going to read all these stats, but things that really matter to me are the one in the far right square, which is about this fosters a sense of belonging. Over 7 million people felt less lonely. They felt more connected locally, and they felt like they belonged to their community. And I just think that's amazing. And that is community-led, informal connections made that belong to that community, nobody else. Next slide, please. It also inspires that local engagement. So what we see from people volunteering, and most community organisers, big lunches, don't see themselves as volunteering where they live, but that is over 617,000 informal volunteers giving their time where they live. And that's huge. And what's more is that people go on to get involved in other activities where they live. And that is what creates that greater connection, and it builds the foundations of those relationships. Next slide. And this was a little aside that we discovered that actually, because people are connected together and they start looking at where they live, 3 in 4 people are more likely to make changes to their lifestyle to protect neighbour and environment after having a big lunch. At my big lunch, I had only no single-use plastics. And actually, my neighbour probably does better than me now by not having any single-use plastics in her house. So things like that, we learn from each other. We pick up other tips and pieces that help us improve. Next slide, please. And this was a huge byproduct of the big lunch that we only started measuring in 2015. So what we found out was that people were using the big lunch as a fundraiser to fundraise for things that mattered to them. So we started measuring that, and over the years we've seen about £100 million raised. A lot of that stays local, some of that's for national charities. So we've started supporting people in these sort of fiscal times. We started supporting people with resources in their packs to help them fundraise for things that matter for them. And of course, if you have nothing to fundraise for, you can always fundraise for Eden. We don't mind. So that is why we do the big lunch, do you know, because for us, it's fun and it's easy and it's for everybody. But I wanted to share with you some of the importance of where it comes from and why we think it really, really matters to share that food, friendship and fun on the 7th and 8th of June.
So everybody, I'm just going to run through some of the top tips. The photographs that you saw on the last page just there before the pick a date were from Cardiff and Belfast and Fermanagh. So a little taste of what happens in the nations as well. It's only right to add some of that in. But one of the first things anybody does is obviously think about how they're going to do it. And the place to go is to thebiglunch.com, where you can then pick and choose you know what you want. We have lots of tools and information that you can make use of, all downloadable and actually all personalizable as well, if that's even a word. And so you can add the name of your street, your group, whatever it might be that you might, even your own logos. But one of the things I wanted to say was the main date is the 7th and 8th of June. But if that date isn't working for your neighbourhood, feel free to change it. For instance, lots of people will be joining in for VE Day this year and doing something really early. And you might even feel like you've had so much fun, you might want to do it again in June, and the 7th is too early. So feel free to take part any time in Month of Community, because the whole month is about, the whole month of June is about community, and you have Loneliness Awareness Week, Refugee Week, Small Charities Week, all kinds of weeks in there that you might want to pick, or you simply might want to do it just to celebrate your neighbourhood. And it can be as simple as a cup of tea and a slice of cake. So if you haven't done something before and you're a bit nervous about the amount of effort it might be, please don't be. Just keep it simple, and go ahead and pick that date. So moving on now, you get a free party pack, as I mentioned, online, and this is just an example of some of the things that you get, but there's some amazing wee ideas in there that you can make use of. So if you make yourself a cup of tea and cake and have a wee look through it and pick out what might be useful, because every event is different, and what might be useful for one may not be suited to the audience of the next. So have a little think, and we have a team who are very willing to help you if you have questions that aren't answered, and if you have them already, throw them into the chat. And as we move through, as Tracy said, we'll pick those up at the end. So moving on. One of the things that you may be thinking about is not doing it on your street, perhaps doing it somewhere else. Doing it on the street, you do need to get permission if it's something that hasn't been done before and it's large scale. We often do it in our back gardens and on our driveways, just to keep it really, really simple. But if you're planning to go large, do speak to your council. But thinking about a street, and thinking about where you might go, there are other places. So we've seen them on beaches, we've seen them in car parks. People have had their big lunch in their church hall. People have had their big lunch in their church. There are so many places you might think about. And if you are a little bit put off by road closure or leaving a little bit late even, then do something somewhere simple. Just do it. So thinking about where it is and coming up with a plan, I 100% suggest that you bring a couple of people on board first. So moving on, there are many different ways of doing it, but the audience that you're trying to support, or the people that you're trying to bring in, are the people that you need to think about. So put your venue where you think is most valuable. And the other thing then to think about too, if you're needing to close your road, is insurance. Now our pack at thebigLunch.com does provide you with information about insurance, but if there's something that you're not sure about and you want to run through it with us, get in touch, okay? And as I say, the pack there has lots of ideas, but one of the lovely things that we'd love you to do is to add your plan, once you have it, to our Big Lunch map, which is going live next week. And the lovely thing about that for you is that if you can get in early and get your details on there, we've got some Big Lunch goodies to give away, and those will be just while stocks last. So the earlier you are, the better chance of getting those. If we go on to slide 4. So one of the things that people do is they kind of get very formal, and you don't need to. The beauty of the Big Lunch is that it is for everybody. And so including children, if it's at a street level, is a great way to create positive neighbourhood, and also to think about, bringing them in, because children are neighbours too. So here we have a picture of one of our colleagues' daughters, who's actually dropping a little invite through the door of her neighbours for her Big Lunch. And I know on my own street as well, like involving my sons meant that they knew older members of the street and were able to help them out during COVID as well. A lot of neighbourhoods got together during COVID and supported each other, and it would be nice to be able to maintain that in some way. So perhaps, who knows, if you're doing your Big Lunch on the street this year, you'll maybe be bringing back some of that sentiment that's maybe getting lost again, as we all got back to busy lives and dealing with all the things that life throws at us. But if you are planning to do something and you maybe don't know everybody on your street, please do make sure that everybody's involved and know what's going to be planned, because there's nothing worse than you getting up in the morning, maybe going to work in a hospital or something, you can't get your car out. So just do what you need to do to let people know. Invites are great, but if it's something that you're doing as a group, perhaps you want to use a Facebook group or a page, or set something up like that for going forward. I'm moving on to 5. So food is what brings people together after all, but the main ingredient is people. We always say, if you're worried about money, or you're worried about how much planning is going to be involved, just keep it really simple. Tea and cake, it can be a picnic and people can bring what they want to the table. But it depends on how you're doing it. We look, quite closely at people, helping people at the very start in that informal way of doing it at a street level. And some people choose to do one side of the street as savoury and one side sweet. Other people decide, as people respond to their invites, to ask people to bring certain things, or you tick off the list what you'd like. There's so many ways of doing that, and that is all in our pack, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But what I would say to you is, these days there are lots and lots of people who do have dietary requirements. So it's lovely to share food, and people get a real taste of foods they maybe never tried before as well, which is even nicer. But it's really a good idea to just stick a little sticker or a sheet on top of that with the ingredients on there, just to keep everybody right. But you do find, and it's a question that comes up all the time, you do find that people who have dietary requirements are usually really careful about looking after those for themselves as well. So just be mindful of it, but don't let it rule your life. And going on to question or spot 6. So the extras, they make it lovely. They're not essential, but they do add to the party. So we've got lots of tips on our website around how you can make bunting. You can make it out of old plastic bags. We encourage people to make their own tablecloths. There's some of the lovely memories I've had the luxury of going to quite a few events that have been hosted by other people. And some of the tablecloths that I've loved have been where people have just put a big sheet of wallpaper across a trestle table and given children pens. And the food has been put down on the table, and the kids have coloured the table in while the event's been going on. They've signed it, they've done lots of different things like that. Other people have used tablecloths at events as a way to consult, asking people a question in the middle of the tablecloth and encouraging people as they sat there to come up with some of the solutions. And we've seen people do that with bunting as well, haven't we, Laurie? We've seen where people have hung the bunting up on a washing line and invited people to answer a question about what more they'd like to see on their street or what more they'd like to see in their community. Other people have used bunting to celebrate the success of their organisation during that year, with some of the statistics of things that they've been able to achieve and some photographs. You can really do quite a lot, and I could talk all day about bunting because I love it. But just think about how you might be a little bit more creative and make your big lunch stand out for you in comparison to other events in the year. Music, people have Spotify lists and all sorts. There are other places you can go to, but we do have one big lunch Spotify what's it called, like playlist. That's it. I'm a bit old to remember all these things now, with lots of songs that would be considered safe enough, so you can just tap into that and play away. Or you may want to have a theme and go all country or whatever you want, but all I'm saying really is music adds a little bit of a positive vibe to the day. And then there are lots of fun things you can do. And again, on the biglunch.com website, there are tons of ideas suited to all different age groups. We do find one of the big beauties of the Big Lunch is that it's very definitely intergenerational. And it's not that easy to organise intergenerational events and get them right. But the surveys that we do afterwards have evidence to show that all people came to that table in different ways and got something, useful out of it. So do think about, the audience that you're bringing together and the fact that they'll be all different ages potentially, and then host and plan your events around that. There is some lovely things. And if I was to pull anything out, I would say that I love our human bingo, which is a little bit different, but helps people start to integrate, because one of the difficulties is if people come to the event and sit down together, they don't mix and mingle so much. So that's where these kinds of things can come in. We encourage people to just maybe come up with a name badge they can decorate. And then that means if you're in a larger street or in a larger organization or something like that, where people don't know each other, it allows people a little bit more flexibility to introduce and talk and share. And we also have conversation starters, which are, a great way to break the ice. So lots of different tips there. If we move on to 7. So your event might be bigger than your street. In the current climate, everybody is struggling. So we know that keeping it simple will be perhaps the way that a lot of people will go this year. You can choose to fundraise, and you can fundraise for the Eden Project as well, which will help, sustainability and help us with all our activities to improve the planet. But if you're planning to fundraise for something local as well, you might want to approach your local cafes and shops and businesses to see if they might be interested, perhaps in having their brand identified as part of your event. You could pin that up and maybe encourage them to donate something simple for a little raffle, or maybe some of the food for the day, a couple of loaves of bread or whatever it might be. Don't be afraid to ask, but just be mindful that there are lots of ways to fundraise, and Laurie will be sharing some of those later on in the presentation. And I think really from my point of view, most of the tips have been shared there, but the key thing is to remember to make your own memories. You know, the big lunch is a really special annual event, and the lovely thing about it is, where you do it every year, you know, you might love this and go on to do it every year like we do, then people grow up and the photographs are of people growing through the ages, and then you have memories afterwards when people are no longer with us. And one of these gentlemen, the guy with the tartan shirt there, is no longer with us this year, but he has been at Farland Way's big lunch in Derry City for so many years that I can't even remember when, you know, how long, probably 10 years of them. He has helped with that, so this one will be bittersweet for them, but they've all those memories of him at them, and there'll be lots of talking and sharing. And it's really nice to look back on your street and see how people have grown up and have those memories of those who are no longer with us. But one of the things we would love you to do too is to share your imagery on our social media. Maybe appoint yourself a photographer so that they're in charge of all of that. And if you can upload them and hashtag the big lunch on Instagram and on Facebook in particular, then we'll be able to tap into those at the Eden Project Communities Facebook page, and hopefully get permission to share those to motivate others in the future. So yes, just please have fun. And we're going to pass back now to Laurie. And obviously, if you've got wee questions out of that, you know, put them into the chat. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Grania. The taking photos is a good tip. Don't be in charge of the music and the photos. I've done that before, and your phone's attached to something for the whole time. You don't take any photos. Yeah, I was just going to share briefly a little bit about my own big lunch. So I apologize. There seems to be like a delay with the slides. They're taking a while to come through. There we go. Yeah, so even though our research sort of tells us that, is it something like most big lunches don't happen on streets? We have a lot of photos of street parties, and mine happened to be a street party. So, but yeah, as Grania said, I actually don't host it on the big lunch weekend officially, because sometimes I'm busy visiting other people's. So we do it in late June, and we do it outside on our streets. And we've always had a backup of, we've got some like lanes behind our houses that are gated, so we know that no one's going to disturb us if we end up there. But yeah, it's a classic terrace, so we don't have driveways or anything. It is a street closure. So yeah, basically, my tips would be find your allies, find your useful neighbours. So I found the houses that are nearest to me and the neighbours that I naturally knew best are the ones who are most involved over the last few years. I moved in 2018, and I think we had our first big lunch in 2019. Obviously, we've had a few off years in the middle there, but I know that the neighbours in number 4 they'll bring the speakers out. They have a gazebo. I know the neighbours in number 9 brought loads of food last time. They were quite happy to have bunting hanging from my house to their house because we're opposite each other. So it's finding who's the best person, find out who has what as well. You know, who's got a table, who's able to bring chairs, and also finding one of my neighbour's sons offered to do invitations with me, and sometimes I use the pack invitations, and I used to actually write them, but now I do the thing that Grania said, where you actually fill them in online. You sort of pre-fill them and then print them off, but it can take a little bit of effort to go around the houses, and yeah, a neighbour's son offered to help do that with me, which was lovely, and he obviously enjoyed like meeting everybody and knocking on doors. And we had a few doors that didn't answer. We've had a few people who were like, why would you do that? This is an odd thing. But having that pack sometimes, or having something official, meant that you could go like, no, it's a thing that everyone's doing. I'm not being weird. It's just a nice thing to do. I also used to get quite a lot. I remember having someone going, it must cost a lot. Why would you do it? Isn't it costing you money? But it wasn't. So yeah, that was lucky. That sort of leads me nicely on to council support. So I've been really fortunate to again find the right people in Cardiff Council to help me with my road closures. And actually now I literally just email them and go, we're doing our big lunch street party again. Is everything sorted? Are we able to do this again? Give them a run through of what we're doing. And it's really, yeah, they haven't previously charged us, and it's really informal. They bring the signs. So the picture there is my sign on my street, and that is my one tip. Put bunting on your road closure signs, or if you've got anything official, decorate it and make it look lovely. So I remember I put my sign out, And I got a few dodgy looks of like, why have they closed this road? This is really annoying. And as soon as the bunting was on there, and as soon as the bunting was up, the gazebos were out, the vibe changed. Like drivers would pass by and go, the road's closed. Oh, isn't that lovely? They're doing a nice thing. But yeah, and the other tip I would say is definitely start small and simple. You can go big in the future if you want to, but we've definitely kept it really simple and easy. So it is literally bring a chair and a plate of food to share is kind of what we always say. And that can include bringing a bag of crisps. Like, we don't want people to feel they can't come because they can't bring any food. Yeah, we worked out which neighbours had the speakers for the music. We worked out which neighbours did the decorating, and we actually haven't ever arranged proper games, because that last photo there is the children on the street just going wild with their scooters, bikes and water pistols. And we've been really lucky that that we've had really good weather most years. And the one year we did have a bit of rain, it then became beautiful afterwards. But yeah, so it's always really varied. We have 20 people, sometimes we've had 35. It's been quite small. People come and go as they please. Really nice and just, yeah, simple. And it's just the stuff that comes out of it is lovely. Like, yeah, seeing the children play with each other who never knew each other. And I'm one of my like dearest memories is my neighbour, who's now in her 80s, telling me about how she first did her skydive when she did her first skydive in her 70s after her husband passed away. And it was when I was planning to do a skydive. It was such a small random connection, but it was just really nice to be able to have that conversation and sort of connect about something. And we never would have done that just saying hello on the street. So it's just sort of making that space for that. I think I went through all those points. That's all right. Yeah, and that's a little bit about my big lunch, but actually what you have arranged can be as wild and wonderful or as small as you like. So there's some pictures here from these. I think these are all from our colleague Sam, who they've really varied their events over the years. They've done small street-based things, and then they've done huge fetes in their park. So this one is you see a few photos here of the big fete in the park. They've done a drive-through for the kids where they all decorated boxes like cars and watched a film together. And that one in the middle is a superhero. Oh, I can't remember what they called it now. But it was like it was challenges. It was welly wanging. They did a massive challenge day and then had their big lunch as part of it. So it's weird and wonderful events just to bring people together. Those ones, if you start with my advice of starting small and simple, those ones might be a bit scary, but you can make it what you want it to be. And then, yeah, here are the smaller ones. So actually, Grania mentioned about sort of everybody decorating some bunting and putting it outside someone's house. That one in the middle is literally two people came together and had a cup of tea, and they got to know each other and spent more time together. And then that top one is a group in Neath where literally they were playing all sorts of games. They've had people on bouncy castles and football, and that's a really small street that one has evolved over the years to become bigger. But yeah, there are lots of, it's kind of take it and run with it and do what you want with it. Like it's an idea we want to share. We just want to bring people together over food. So yeah, I'm going to share a few ideas around fundraising. Some of this will be obvious, some of it will be stuff you've not heard of before. But it's as Tracy and Grania both mentioned, huge amounts of money has been raised at people's big lunches over the years, and for really local causes or for national causes. So yeah, there's a few ideas. So the first two there are what we call the copper kilometre, which I had never heard of until this group had told us about it. Where basically they did it even houses versus odd houses had to do the longest line of copper coins they could on their street. And you think that's really fun for the kids. Everyone can collect the money, and as much as we don't use cash as much these days, everyone's got a pile of coppers somewhere where they're like, that's not useful anymore. What can I do with that? And actually, I think they raised something like £200 or £300 just from that. So it really did add up. They must have had quite a length on it. But yeah, and then we've got things like you could do a bingo or hold a raffle. There are legalities around raffles, but actually if you're doing small things with donated gifts that aren't costing much, it's really easy to do yourself. Or you could do quizzes where you ask people to join. we've got loads of tips. There's specific stuff on our website on thebiglunch.com, or in the pack as well about fundraising ideas. So if you want to know any more, you can just get in touch. But the one on the end there, I've just put guess the, work out how many sweets are in a jar, name the teddy. But I just really like that one that I saw, that someone said, can you balance 20p on a lemon? So I thought that's just something really fun and simple that will just collect lots of 20p's.
I think, Laurie, in the pack, there's a wonderful cupcake one, isn't there? So there's a whole sheet of cupcakes, and you tear off the corner with the answer, and it's basically how many cupcakes are on this sheet. So,
oh, nice. So you don't even need a jar or a teddy. You just use that. Nice. Some other fundraising ideas. So yeah, you could basically make games and make them chargeable. And I say all these are fun ideas. Actually, sometimes people just pass a bucket around and say, we're fundraising for this cause, this at our event. But yeah, there's some ideas. You can do wet sponge throwing, or face painting. As I said, any games that you're doing, if you're doing egg and spoon race, just get people to pay to enter. Or the two people on the end they've done like unwanted toy sales and bake sales. So people, you're bringing out tables and actually add another layer to the bringing people together and eating, by having a little swap and share as well. Again, as I said, there are loads of ideas. We've done entire sessions on these where we've taken an hour just to talk through fundraising ideas. And the other thing I wanted to share around tips for your big lunch is, just some of this might be obvious, but some of it is useful to know. Again, we've done whole sessions on these, like planet-friendly ideas of how you can keep your big lunch waste-free and not harmful to the planet. So was it Grania mentioned already, bunting out of everything and anything. Obviously you can have scraps of fabric, paper, cardboard. I think you can make them out of plastic bags as well if you like iron them. We've done that before. That middle photo is a website that we have, well, they're all across Wales, called Benthyg, but it's a library of things, and you might have a library of things local to you, or if not, you just have neighbours who have things. So ask around, see what people have. You don't have to buy. So borrow, don't buy is kind of the message there. And I think the other thing to think about is the kind of the what not to do. So yeah, trying not to have loads of plastics, trying not to have balloons, and actually the bubbles are a great alternative for that. Like even not having small pots of bubbles for children to play with, having like sticks and some strings for children to play with. It's really fun, but it's also a good alternative to all the balloons and stuff. That's the sort of the setting up of your big lunch, and then there's kind of the actual food, which is the heart of it. So there's an easy one of like bringing your own cutlery, wash up afterwards, don't use disposable plates and cutlery. Have your bins ready. My previous photo of my own big lunch, all the bins were under the table, so they were nobody knew they were there. So everyone was going, where can I put this? So have your bins ready so you know what can be recycled or what can be like food waste. That lovely spread of food, I don't know if you can see because it might be a bit too small, but half of those all say that they're vegan. So people this group chose to do like planet-friendly food, so they were trying to do plant-based mostly. And what Grania said, like just labeling everything so that everyone can know, in case there's dietary requirements. And yeah, really good tip, have Tupperware on hand to take things home. If you bring it and there's leftovers, take it home. One of the best tips I've ever heard on this is don't overload your plate, because if it's on your plate, it's going to have to go in the bin or the food waste afterwards. But if it's on a shared plate and it's not been in the sun for too long, hopefully, it can be sent home with somebody. It's not been on somebody's plate and fiddled with already. I think that was kind of quick run through of all of those kind of ideas. Happy to share more if anybody's interested. And what's my last slide? Yeah, basically we'd love to see everyone joining in, feeding community spirit. And there's another little link there for you to get your party planning pack. we are happy to take questions. I think we've probably run through that quite quickly, but I feel like we'll give lots of time for questions, and then we can, if there aren't any, we'll just all have the gift of time. So I'm going to stop sharing now and hand over. I can see the chat going mad, and I can't see it currently, so hopefully Beverly can let me know if there's any questions.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you, Grania. I'm sorry, Grania, I forgot to introduce you when it was your turn to go onto your slide, which was rather remiss of me. I've seen a few questions and lots of chat, and one Grania said, yes, we do, which was our stats on the big lunch outside the UK, which I don't know whether we have specific stats on that, but we have certainly been involved with the big lunch across the whole of the Commonwealth during Commonwealth years. And I think we have a little stronghold in a small area of Canada, but actually we focus mainly on the UK. So that's England, Wales, Northern Ireland and Ireland. Go on. Scotland and Northern Ireland, sorry.
I was going to say, you can claim Ireland if you want.
No, I got my words mixed up. No.
So, yes, just to respond back to that, Jan. So, yeah, you were asking us for an overview. So, we've previously worked with a delegation from Cuba who wanted to use the big lunch, and they used it as a way to reinforce local food sustainability and encouraging people to maximize local food produce to reduce waste, you know, so looking at kind of harvest crops and things like that. And we've also worked with a group of people in Romania, and that was around encouraging new neighborhoods to get to know each other better. And in America, and you can tell I've been around for a while, in America, there was an issue for some time around apartment blocks, you know, and people knowing their neighbors in apartment blocks, and that lack of trust if you don't. And so there was a whole vibe, and it wasn't just big lunch, although big lunch then became used for it, but it was just that whole thing of using food as a convener. And so people were encouraged to get together to have like a potluck just outside the door of their apartments. And so it started off with a few neighbours and then grew. And as a result, then it became a way to introduce people to their neighbours in new apartment blocks, and was really quite successful. And I know that a number of neighbours here in Northern Ireland have done that in Belfast and found it quite useful as well. Not trying to force it on people, but just having it start off, and then they did it over the course of a few months, so that, you know, people started to know, oh, it's Thursday, it's the first Thursday of the month, we can get together for a potluck. And that built a sense of neighborhood in that apartment block of new neighbors, and actually new communities, because it was a large number of people from different backgrounds who didn't have any history of living in Belfast before necessarily. So hopefully that's a bit helpful. But if you had something specific that you wanted to know, apart from that, as Tracy said, during the Platinum, during the Jubilees, actually a number of them, some of the countries got together, whether that was in their various different embassies, but also out in the community, and made the big lunch a way to celebrate from dawn until dusk. So back to you, Tracy.
Thank
I
you.
can talk for Ireland.
Do we have any other questions, Beverly? Did you see any more in the chat?
There was a specific one about the date. So do they have to do it on the big lunch weekend?
No. So what we say, I muted myself. What we say about the big lunch is the big in the big lunch is us all doing it together. So what we try to do is create that part of something bigger, but that's just our sort of wish, and it makes it easier for research basically. But the big of the big lunches is all doing it together, so that sense of occasion. But the main thing is that you do a big lunch, so it doesn't matter when you decide to do it. You know, you do it when it's convenient for you and your community. So yes, that's the only reason we say the first full weekend of June, just so there's a pattern for everybody being involved. So yes, you can do it whenever you like. And I'm a bit like Laurie, I'm usually a bit later in June because I'm working at other big lunches on the big lunch weekend. There
wasn't any other specific questions. There was just comments about getting involved with schools, and people work for different voluntary groups, so they're going to take the idea to them to see if they can engage with that. So I put some links in as people were chatting,
So
just
what
that was specific to.
lovely. What I will do as well, around the schools, we do have a live lesson for schools that we'll be promoting, and that comes from the biomes, and that tells a lovely story about a monkey in the rainforest gathering things for his big lunch, which was quite funny because my son's school watched this live lesson and then invited me to the big lunch as if I didn't know anything about it. And I was like, don't you know who I am? Please. So that was beautiful. So there's those resources, and actually we do have session plans for schools and things like that about inviting, you know, about that school being at the heart of the community and inviting their neighbours and families to come and meet together. So there's lots of different aspects that schools can get involved with, and most groups.
It's really about people bringing their own flavour to it, isn't it? Because that's one of the beauties. It's a simple idea, but you can take it and make it work for what you're trying to achieve, whether that's as a group or whether that's as a you know, like a number of neighbours. Just on schools there, one of the PTAs in one of the integrated schools in Belfast wanted, because there was a large number of people from different communities, you know, and they wanted to do something to fundraise, but also to bring the communities together to help people recognise our commonality. And so what they did was the PTA cooked the jacket potatoes, and then people who were from different backgrounds, whether that was Italian or Irish or Romanian or Polish, whoever it was, they all took a table and together they produced food from their own countries, and people paid a ticket at the door for their family, small amount, and then went round, got their jacket potato, went round and picked the different foods that they might like to try in their jacket spud. So just a wee idea, and there are so many more ideas like that on our website. I'm keeping pushing you there because we've spent years putting good stuff up there.
Thank you, Grania, and thank you, Michelle, for putting that in the chat. We have been, so Michelle's just popped that her council gives free road closures for people doing a big lunch. We've been working for many, many years to try get councils to waive fees and make it a lot easier for people to come together where they live. And some of the councils are really, really good. I know mine is, and some are still a little bit stubborn. So but they try. It's usually a lack of capacity. Just to mention, because there's a few other things in the chat about VE Day, we're actually producing the guidance around street parties for VE Day. So if you go onto the government website, you'll be directed to the resources that the Big Lunch have produced to support people who want to come together as a community celebration. And also, just to let you know, as part of that, doing it at other times and for other interests. I noticed Darren mentioned the Great Big Green Week. The Big Lunch actually kicks off the month of community. So Volunteers Week, use it as a way to celebrate their volunteers or recruit new volunteers. Neighbourhood Watch Week, if you have anybody who's a member of the Neighbourhood Watch scheme in your area, their insurance covers Big Lunch events, and they use it a way for people to bring their neighbours together and get to know their neighbourhood watch coordinators, so they don't think they're all, you know, nosy neighbours. Although I welcome a nosy neighbour any time to keep an eye on my house. And then we have things like Have a Grow in Wales. We have Great Big Green Week, Loneliness Awareness Week, Carers Week, Refugee Week, Windrush Day, Care Home Open Day, the Great Get Together. There's loads of organisations throughout June who have said, if you're going to do something, you know, let's make June the month of community. Let's just do something, large or small, but whatever it takes to get the hook in our communities to come together, you know, to support each other and the places where they live. So that's just letting you know about the sort of broader remit in which the Big Lunch sort of coordinates and sits within. All stunned silence. I like stunned silence, but I don't know whether it's a good thing. Do people feel a little bit more prepared to go on and do something in their community or a big lunch? Couple of nods, yes. Nearly, Angie, nearly. Yeah, Rebecca's definitely on there. Well, then that's great. And look, we're here to support. And if anybody needs any sort of resources, or they're like, do you know this game? I am absolutely sure, as Grania said, we have been putting, ooh, they're nice. Are they? Oh, yes. Thank you, Joy. That's lovely. We have been putting amazing bank of resources and information on our site for years now, to give you the tools and the things that you might need to try and make it easier, to make the difference that you're aiming to make where you live. So I would like to thank my team, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. And you have about 15 minutes gift of time, I think.
Tracy, can I just jump in really quickly just to let people know about a few more things we've got coming up? If interested, no pressure.
Go for it. Go for
But
it.
yeah, I love a call that finishes early. Yeah, so just to let people know, we have a call next Monday, I think, which is about designing events for human connection. So going in a little bit more in depth about like event organizing, if anyone's interested in that. We also have, I'm just going to grab the link for that for you. And we also have I know I recognize some faces. So we have a monthly networking session for our kind of online community doers and shakers and makers, which is always the first Wednesday of the month. So that'll be next Wednesday on the 2nd of April. Yeah, if you'd like to join any of those, you're welcome to. We also have a few, just to say, join us on our social media platforms. You can find Eden Communities, as well as Eden Communities Cymru and Northern Ireland, Scotland. We all have specific pages and posts. But we are doing a bit of a countdown to the big lunch in June. And I know Sam will be doing I think like a stream of an interview with other people on the 7th. So yeah, just basically go on our socials and you'll see a lot of that stuff as well. And thank you, Beverly, for putting in that events page for me. Okay, I'll stop signposting now and let people actually have a nice 10 minutes to themselves.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us, and I hope you did manage to get your lunch, and if not, that you're going to go get it now. And we look forward to hearing lots about your big lunches and your community events in the future. Keep in touch. Take care.